Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
What's up, everyone? It's your boy RB3.
I'm Sabrina.
And we are back for another review here on First Cut. That's right. We are continuing our Oscars 2023 coverage, and we're reviewing all the Best Picture nominees so far this year. We're deep in the collection. We're down to the last few. And of course, we are here. You know, we've done a lot of reviews. You can already check out the playlist. But right now, this might be the most exciting one of all because we have, we're going to be talking about Martin McDonagh's new film, The Banshees of Inisherin. I'm sorry, I tried really hard to get that name. You got this?
I got you. Martin McDonagh's The Banshees of Inisherin.
There we go. Boom, boom, boom. This film is starring Colin Farrell, Brandon Gleeson, Keoghan, Kerry Condon. Is set in, I believe, 1910s, 1920s Ireland during the war during that time. And it's basically about two friends, or two, so-called friends, having a beef that is just unsettleable. No matter what they could do, there's no way to resolve it. There's no way to squash it. They're just going to stay having this tension. So, Sabrina, I want to get your thoughts on this. I know you put this on your top 10 movies of 2022, which you could watch our full Meaning of Podcast breakdown of that on the channel here right now. But what are your thoughts on this movie?
I absolutely love this film. Like you mentioned, I think I did have it at like number 4 for this past year. And I'm somebody who is a slight fan of Martin McDonagh. Like, I love what he does. I love his like dark comedic approach to all of these like heavier topics. And this one was no exception. I think this film is his magnum opus. I just said when we were talking about Oscars picks and predictions. But yeah, following this story that's kind of set in the backdrop of a civil war in Ireland. And this is off of this secluded little island off of Ireland. So in the background, we have this civil war. And then on this tiny little island, we have a civil war between these two friends. So like Captain America Civil War, eat your heart out. This is my ultimate elite war film.
Yeah, no, it's funny how the setting is kind of like an externalizing the metaphor that these two are kind of going through, kind of dividing the island a little bit too, because there's people at the bar who are definitely team Brandon Gleeson's character, and there's people who obviously is Colin Farrell, his family, his sister, are very concerned about him obsessing over this friendship, and it kind of deals with that theme of like obsessive compulsive behavior, like being overly attached or overly needy to somebody, being overly glued to somebody, especially when it's somebody at old age. Who Brandon Gleeson's character's name is Combe, and he wants to create great art. He wants to do that through making his music, and he figures just doing it on this little island is not going to do it. He has to write something a true masterwork, but he just can't do it with Colin Farrell's, I can't pronounce his name to save my life, but Harik, that's right. He just can't, it's just he can't do a part just yapping his ear off all day. So yeah, it's funny to me because I'm a big fan of Martin McDonagh's films. I talked about this before, In Bruges, one of my favorite comedies, murder mystery comedies of all time. Seven Psychopaths is also on my wall of great movies back there. I love that movie so much. A little bit biased, Hollywood set, of course. Three Billboards. I had an arc with that movie because I thought I wasn't gonna like it. They had white people saying the N-word. There's nothing about that movie I should really like, but I still find myself overwhelmed and moved by certain parts of that film. And so yeah, I was going into this film very excited. And I talked to one of my former coworkers, Matt Stewart. Shout out to Matt Stewart. We just shot a good film together called In the Static. Be coming out soon. We were talking about this movie, and he kind of made the good point of if you watch the first scene, the first 10 minutes of this movie, that kind of makes or breaks how you feel about it, right? Like if you like the first 10 minutes, you're gonna like or love the rest of the movie. If you're not really into it, you're not gonna be into it. And that's exactly kind of what happened to me. Like that first little breakup conversation scene when Colin's basically trying to break the news to him gently. Like,
no more. You do like me.
I don't.
And you just see Park just not understanding, just not getting it. And I think part of the reason why I kind of have a little bit of disconnect from like the heart of the story that we kind of get introduced to off rip is just because, you know, I'm at that point in my life where you know, I just depend on a lot of my friends, or, you know, I think a lot of my friends depend on me. So I think having that whole relationship breaking up, whole relationship splitting up, fear it's a little bit like something not ideal, right? Something that you necessarily don't want to deal with. So maybe that's a little bit of my personal internalization of like, no, I don't want any of my friends to do this to me. And maybe I see myself a little bit too much in the Porrick and not in the Comb. So maybe that's why I'm like, oh, I'm my heart's gonna get breaking throughout this entire movie. But again, that's just me. What do you kind of see yourself? Do you kind of see yourself in this movie at all, or where do you kind of see in this relationship between these two?
Yeah, I think I actually see a lot of humanity in the relationship between these two. I think I love what you mentioned about the opening. It really is make or break, and it was 100% make for me. I actually avoided this film for a hot minute. I don't know what it was, but something about the trailers and everything just did not stand out to me. So I got to it pretty late, like honestly, shortly before we did our top 10. But right at the start, the second we have Colin Farrell's character walking across this like sprawling, beautiful, isolated landscape, and then knocking on his friend's door, looking in his window, I thought, first of all, this was so comedic. Like it really, really got me. But then, yeah, once they have that conversation at the bar, the way Colin Farrell's face drops and he's like, oh, like you don't want to be my friend anymore? And then Brendan's just like straightforward, no BS, like the way he was coming and approaching this situation, 100%. Even later on in the film, and Barry Keoghan is incredible. So he kind of like pops up, you know, as Barry Keoghan does in a lot of films. He's just like a little stinker, making a little ruckus everywhere he goes. But after he announces that it's April and that Parrick thinks that it's April Fool's Day, so he thinks that this was actually a joke played on him by Colm, and then he like goes up to him again and he's like, oh, like, you know, you were just playing, okay, now we're good, April Fool's Day is past us, and then it happens all over again. And then this is just an absolute snowball effect that happens to their relationship and everything around them. Like you mentioned, the entire town is talking about it. The father, the priest at the church is like putting in a good word for Park, like the bartender for a second. And then, yes, they're going and they're taking sides in this little town. Kerry Condon's performance as Park's sister, I think is absolutely incredible. And I think this is within the first 30 minutes of the film, but when she is talking to Colm about like, why are you not talking to my brother? And Colm says something along the lines of like, because she says, what is it that you're hoping for? And then Colm's like, a little bit of peace. Exactly like you mentioned. Like he wants to have his peace. He wants to pursue the things that he thinks will outlive him. And it's probably some existential internal thing where he's like, okay, I'm getting towards the end of my life. Now I have to make every second count. And I think this is something that resonates with a lot of people on the Colm side. And he's almost framed as somebody you're supposed to be like, why wouldn't you just be friends with Parrick? Like, what does that do for what does that change? But we see the downfall of both of them. We see them lose the things that they love. Because with that conversation between Colm and Siobhan, played by Kerry Condon, you see a shift in her as well, where she was just kind of there. She's chilling, she's reading, she's kind of living that very slow life. Once he says to her, like, I want a little bit of peace, she walks out that door and she has her own storyline throughout this whole film. She then gets a job on the mainland and she leaves. And I think it's that conversation that kind of pushed her to a certain point where she was like, yeah, there's more for me out there too. And I'm not too late in my life to kind of pursue that. So there's something really beautiful that is said there. But in terms of Parrick and Colm, back and forth, they lose everything. Park loves Jenny, his donkey.
Yeah.
She should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actress.
All right.
She's so funny, and having all the moments with her in the film, whether it's between Siobhan and Park or Park and Colm. But yeah, Colin Farrell loses her because she chokes on Colm's finger.
That's what I'm saying. That's where it's like, that's when the movie started to get a little like freaky for me, right? Because I'm like, okay, like the beef is happening and starting to like escalate, and I'm loving where it's going. The fact that he took it to the extreme of cutting off your fingers, like, and it was throwing him at, it wasn't just one finger. He almost lost the whole dang hand. Like multiple times. Like,
And
we're
that's the
like,
thing.
yeah, trying to resolve this. And yeah, he just kept checking them at the house, have a whole trail of fingers laying up on on the driveway.
And his whole point that he makes so many times throughout this is music or art or poetry or all of this is going to outlive me, except now he can't play his fiddle because he's
Right.
missing all of the fingers. So I think that backdrop of the Civil War is like a great way of showing this. You are losing so many things and you are unable to do the things that you love because you are so stubborn in this way. Or Parik even lost what he loved because he was so stubborn that he couldn't stop talking to Colm. So then, unfortunately, I know it wasn't a direct effect. It was something that happened accidental, but like Jenny died and she passed away and he didn't get the message after the first finger. Personally, I would definitely walk away. I would never talk to that friend again if they were that serious that they cut off a finger.
Right.
I'm out.
Yeah.
But yeah, losing all the things around them, losing what they love, even Parik taking L after L, losing his sister.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a cycle of Parik losing all the way through. He loses his friend, he loses his sister, he loses his donkey, he loses everything, and that's ultimately what caused him. You know, we could go all the way to the end to spoil it. Losing them to go in and actually want to burn down homie's house while bro was still in it, right? And I love that he told him like, hey, make sure your dog's outside at this time. Like, someone make sure your dog is all right. Not you, stay inside the house, but your dog outside. And literally watches his homie like burn inside the house, or he thinks he thinks he's gone. But yeah, it's just that funny. Like you said, it's like that back and forth. It's almost like a metaphor for government war. That's like that kind of conflict of how
No one wins.
No one wins, especially when it starts over something so stupid. Like, it's literally something so stupid of like, hey, let's just like not talk for a second. And it escalates to all this. I think to me, that's where the movie kind of loses me though. I just don't think there's any rational people in this where maybe I connect to. Like, I think maybe my POV character was my closest POV character is Parik, but he's just so dumb and goofy and just won't listen. And but meanwhile, if I'm looking at Colm and he's just so stubborn, he takes the extreme of cutting off his fingers. Nobody tells you to cut off your fingers if you don't like somebody, right? Like, especially if you're like, that just means you're deeply unserious about what you mean your goals are. Like, you say you want to do art, you say you want to do music, but you don't care obviously that much about it. You just want to be angry and want to be grumpy, you want to be alone. You're probably dealing with some sort of depression, you're dealing with some sort of self-loathing or something like that, and he's putting that out against on Colin Farrell. But yeah, that's just how life is, and that's what the movie is like trying to portray.
And exactly. And on this isolated island, outside of these characters, every character we meet is so extremely flawed, no matter who it is. Even the priest that's representing religion, we are seeing him talk to Colm a certain way or treat other people a certain way around the town. Barry Keoghan's character, like I mentioned, he has, I think, one of the most heartbreaking lines ever, where he says, like, well, there goes that dream. And of course, like, he ends up dead. To me, like, I think he committed suicide, and it's something that is just super, super heartbreaking because his character is so tragic, along with Parik and Colm. But nobody out of all of that they were all too busy dealing with their own problems to care about the other people around them too. And I know Barry was annoying and he bothered everybody. It was funny when he walks into the bar and the bartender, he's just like, oh, like, you're not allowed in here. Like, I said you couldn't be in here for the rest of the month. And then he's like, oh, you said till April. And then he's like, what is it? It's April. So just definitely causing a ruckus everywhere he goes. And yeah, I think it just shows, like, at that point when there is this like huge war between so many people, there are other casualties that you don't think about. Siobhan was one of them. She just, because of what Colm did, it gave her the realization of like, all right, I'm going to leave. And yeah, like we mentioned, Parik is just down bad, left and right, L's everywhere. But I think it was such a heartbreaking comedic story, all at once. Throughout all of this, it is so frustrating and it is so exaggerated. But I also think it's so real. And I think we can see bits and pieces of all of these characters within our own lives. And just like this ensemble, the chemistry that they all have together, I think is what cemented this for me as just an absolutely outstanding film. Because as exaggerated as it is, like we spoke about, I think in the hands of a less talented writer, director, and a less talented ensemble, this would just be absolutely chaotic and it wouldn't make any sense. But for me, it does resonate in that way.
Yeah, I definitely think, in terms of his execution, of course, we're talking about or McDonough here. He's done a lot of high award and great films. It's actually already an Oscar winner. A lot of people don't realize this. He won an Oscar for best live action short film back in 2004 for a short that he did. Yeah, he I think the movie is, well directed. It gets to the cut of what the heart of the story is, and I think the metaphors, like we were talking about, like representing the government, the civil war that's happening, in the country, with the civil war that's happening kind of within this town. Those kind of themes of like existentialism, all that. It felt like, it really dove deep, and all those things were like meaningfully placed and thought out throughout this movie. It's just, for me personally, and again, it goes to my thing that I've been saying about a lot of these Best Picture nominees, like great, well executed, just not my cup of tea. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't think just whatever was the humanitarian spark, or the little catch that made this crowd pleasing for certain people. It's not like crowd pleasing to me. Like, and not every movie has to be crowd pleasing. There's a lot of movies that aren't crowd pleasing. Of course, that's totally fine. But yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know where this fits in my life, in my mindset, and why more in my approach of cinema, or cinema watching, at least. So
I mean, I understand that, because like we said, the story's bleak. It ends on a bleak place for basically every single person besides maybe Siobhan. But yeah, overall, I think this is very timely for this time, especially in terms of how selfish everyone is besides Siobhan. So I'm happy that she's at least the one that ended up getting out, hopefully starting a really great life. Because yeah, over the last few years, we've just seen so many people be so selfish, not care about anybody else. And then you lose, other people lose, and there's just a huge fallout around you. So that's where it connected with me 100%. And I think Colin Farrell and Brendan were just so incredible together. I am somebody that rewatches films a lot, but definitely not a film this recent, but I have seen it like 7 or 8 times at this point. And every time I get something new out of it. So I understand your opinion. This is not our Civil War, our first cut Civil War. If you get a finger thrown at your door, totally wasn't me.
It's not yours. Okay, it might be Undresses. So keep a lookout. Fly that finger back to Phoenix. But yeah, otherwise, that's pretty much, that's all my thoughts on Banshees. Do you have anything else, Sabrina? Or
no, I think we just about covered it.
Yeah, all right, cool. Well, those are our thoughts. If you saw the Banshees of Inisherin.
If you guys saw the Banshees of Inisherin, comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. In your opinion, out of the Civil War, out of this first cut Civil War going on right here, who is right, me or RB3?
All right. Let us know, and be sure to follow us at First Cut TMO on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And of course, Sabrina, where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter and TikTok at Sabrina on Film, and Instagram at Sabrina X Monica.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Director RB3. And stream timestamp on Amazon Prime Video. With that being said, y'all, it's your boy RB3.
It's your girl Sabrina.
And I'm peacing out. We're peacing out, y'all. Peace.
It's either me or you. Take you out the equation. It's either me or you. You do the math. Only one can remain.